I want to continue a little bit with what I was talking about yesterday. Uh, this mask mandate. What I worry about, we're not talking at all about boosting our natural immune system. It seems like this whole idea is that if you're not wearing a mask, you're a danger to somebody, but yet you may already have a natural immunity to COVID-19. So this idea of demonizing people, specifically for the idea that may they're not following the typical protocol, which means that we're going to wait for a vaccine and we're going to rely solely on a vaccine to force herd immunity. Herd immunity is gained in two different ways. There's which was the Mayo Clinic had a study out not long ago I read about, and they were talking about herd immunity, and this was early on in the pandemic. Herd immunity is reached two ways. You can do it with both a vaccine and through building up natural immunity through getting the contagion and recovering from it and building natural antibodies. Okay, so the idea that anybody, just because they don't follow or adhere to the CDC guidelines on how to stop the replication of this virus, is not necessarily going to be the one that actually gives you the virus. Okay? I think we're to the point now where you could probably say, look, this virus is aerosol spread. It's aerosol spread. They've also found it in fecal matter. So, I mean, you share a bathroom with somebody who has it, you're more than likely being exposed to it. But in China, they're doing anal swabs in order to actually detect this. It's supposed to be much more accurate. Can't wait for that day. Thank God, I don't have a job that requires me to go to, follow CDC guidelines right now. I don't. So I don't have to. Now, I'm sure there's lots of businesses out there that wouldn't want to do business with me or don't want my business or at least my presence in their facility for not following CDC guidelines. But that's what I'm doing right now. So anyway, there are two ways to reach herd immunity. You don't have to rely specifically on a vaccination. And in fact, waiting for enough doses of this vaccination may actually inhibit us from getting the immunity that we can get and need. I'm all for the younger population to take that risk, go out there and say, hey, I'm young enough, healthy enough, and independent enough to go, hey, if I get sick from this, I'm not going to blame somebody for getting me sick. I'm not. That is the stupidest thing. And that's what's really irritating me of this whole Como issue with him hiding the death rate of with the nursing home deaths. Okay, there's such a thing called a natural death. It's an unfortunate thing that everybody has to go through. And at one point, that's what we considered virus infections to be. These were a natural death. These are things that happen. But all of a sudden, media, as soon as a new virus chain came out, they saw a chance to seize it, blaming somebody for this virus and blaming deaths on people. And now the Republicans have taken up the mantle and they're doing the same damn thing. And it's just, man, we have got to learn to forgive ourselves. We have got to learn to forgive others for getting people sick. It happens. Most of the time, the people that you actually are giving the virus to are people that you love. You cannot chastise and blame people for getting people sick. It's an unfortunate set of circumstances in which we have to live this life under. Okay? More than likely, if I get sick, I'm going to give it to my son. I'm going to give it to my pregnant wife. More than likely, it's going to be my wife that gives me the virus. She's a hairstylist, so she deals with the public constantly. Surprised she hasn't gotten it yet. But she has it. Or at least that we know of. We don't test that much because, apparently most people are asymptomatic to this. So, we probably already got it, passed it, and have antibodies we don't know about. But we don't know that for sure. And I think that's the big problem is a lot of people want to try to control this, and they have ethical reasons for doing that. They want to help people. It's okay. I get that. I get that they want to help people. The problem is it's too big of a logical problem to rely solely on a bureaucracy to get it done. It's just too big. It's too big a problem for that, okay? We've got to step away from that. We've got to start trusting each and every person individually. We need good social cohesion, and this is not it. This is not it. I I assume that these are grandparents hugging their grandkids. This is sad. It really is. This is an act of desperation, and it really goes to show the importance of physical contact in our society. How important it is to interact with one another and to actually have social cohesion and not social distancing. Okay. Now, this virus is bad. I get it. Hey, it sucks. But I can tell you right now, my wife, she goes to work, she comes back, she gets me sick, and I die. I'm not gonna blame her for it. I'm not gonna blame Trump for it. I'm not gonna blame Como. I'm not gonna blame Biden. I'm not. And hold me to that, damn it. If I die and I start griping right before my deathbed about whose fault this was, I'm a freaking hypocrite. I don't think. I hope that I will. I hope I have the strength of character to not do that, to not blame others for a virus, and not even the Chinese. I mean, yeah, I'm as much to blame for the fact that I want to buy Chinese goods. I want to have a relationship with the Chinese. I'm not against a relationship with the Chinese. And I understand that the Great Leap Forward, all these things that happened, I mean, the mass starvation that happened last century in China has opened up these wet markets. Now, we still really don't know where the virus originated from, so good Lord, who knows what that means if it was actually from a lab, which again, I don't think it was somebody manufacturing, trying to do this so that they could institute socialist programs here. No, it's not that. This was just a huge, big mistake. I think Chinese government covered up the knowing of this aerial transmission and human transmission for sure. I think Taiwan proved that early on in this pandemic. But anyway, this is just sad. This is sad that this is what we've reduced ourselves to. That this is the only way that we can physically bond with people we love. I'm a little more heated than I usually am today because my 90-year-old grandfather, whose birthday is coming up next month, be 91, just recovered from COVID-19. He's in the hospital. Now, when he was sick, he had an accident. He fell. He broke his leg. All right. A 90-year-old man breaking his leg is catastrophic. It's really, really hard to recover from. And right now, he's in hospice. Hopefully, he'll recover from this hospice. But I mean, he's in a bad way. He's suffering, and he's probably suffering more from the fact that he can't be with anybody he loves right now. Nobody there to encourage him. All he's seeing is these medical professionals. I mean, and it's wonderful and as amazing as they are, they're not family. They're not. Now, luckily, my sister is a nurse, wonderful nurse, and I'm very thankful that she's getting to see him. But they threw a fit when she went up there, and she's been vaccinated, but she went up there with all her PPE on her birthday to go see him. And apparently, the staff just threw a fit over her being there. And do we not understand what we're doing? And see, and that's the problem I'm trying to combat a little bit. It's like, look, you cannot make a decision that solely fixes everything. There is no perfect decision out there. It's an imperfect balance, and we have to find the best balance that we can. And so we know, apparently, I think at this point that the death rate is below 1%, and it mostly affects people over the age of 65, of course, right? So kudos to our healthcare system. I mean, legitimately, all right? One of the reasons why Western medicine probably has a greater death rate than most third world countries at this point is because we are so good at taking care of people with comorbidities that as soon as a novel virus comes out, it's devastating. It's devastating, and it's, you know, thank God. I mean, we've got this vaccine now, thank God, you know, but physical touch cannot be underestimated. It can't. We've got to stop doing that. We've got to stop acting like that, denying individuals the ability to socially interact with their loved ones is actually going to help solve this problem. It's over. It is done. It is too deeply ingrained into our our society, our populace. The only way we're going to get through is to get to herd immunity. That is it. And I've been talking about this long before because the transmission rate of this virus is way too high. It's way too high. Now it'll go down as we get our base herd immunity goes up. The transmission rate will go down. Problem is, hell, we don't know how long the immunity lasts, either by vaccine or by uh, a natural immunity gained through uh, getting the virus and overcoming it. And so we go into these constant lockdowns. Are we actually denying the opportunity for our natural herd immunity to help supplant the virus from running rampant? So what I mean is, somebody gets it, contracts it, they go into quarantine, they lock down a certain area like LA or New York, these areas, mass populations. They go and they say, okay, everybody quarantine like they were doing in Quebec. They shut everything down, force people to stay basically in their homes. All right, they go into their homes, they recover, they get over it, and then by the time they release people back into the populace and we actually start transmitting the virus again, everybody's lost their herd immunity. So we're actually re-inviting the virus to a new populace that doesn't have any baseline natural immunity anymore. Now, like I said, I'm not an epidemiologist. I'm not a professional. I'm a guy talking to a microphone in front of my computer. But I can't fathom it. I'm just asking questions. And I'm just wondering, are we thinking about these things? Are we weighing this as well? At this point, we've got to. It's been too long. We've been at this over a year. Over a year. So we're going to talk about this a little bit because I'm a huge fan of Jordan Peterson. And I remember him talking about the study about what happened in Romania back in the 1960s. I didn't remember the full details, but he was talking about how the denial of infants to any kind of human touch, interaction, any sort, just feeding them was not enough to actually sustain their life. And that actually would cause huge regressive problems with their neurological function and some infants to die. And so anyway, I started looking into this a little bit and I pulled up this experience test. Now this is an article from 1988. 1988. This was early on when the Berlin Wall fell, when the Soviet communism was falling away, and we're finally getting a glimpse inside. And they were calling these the Gulag orphanage, and so it was just this mass incarceration, basically. Well, mass incarceration. It was an attempt to be humane. I really and generally believe that was, but it's just when you overburden a system like this and people aren't taking responsibility for the individuals or what are their actions. So in other words, the state is forcing them to have children. They don't want to have children, but the state is forcing them. So they're not responsible for the children that happen. The state is, so they give them over to the state, and the state can't handle it because they just get overwhelmed. Overwhelmed. Man, that's classic of what happened here. And it's just the seriousness and of the denial of touch, the denial of social interactions between humans, and the bonding that's necessary there. It was just it's catastrophic to read this. I didn't do any research. I just trusted what Jordan had said in his lectures, and I believed it. I for all the man's faults, I think he's completely honest about everything. And you can rag on him all you want for whatever faults you think he has, but the man, I think, is telling people the truth. And if you don't want to hear it, man, just shut up. But you're depriving yourself of some really profound knowledge that would help us understand and hopefully balance what's necessary and what's needed. So I started doing a little bit of research into this, and apparently there's a scientist in here. What is her name? I started looking her up. This is her book here. It's Tiffany Field was her name, and Touch, second edition of Bradford book. This I I couldn't find when this. Oh, 2003 is when it was published. It was published in 2003. It's like a fascinating book. And when she talks about, although the therapeutic benefits of touch have been increasingly clear, American study claims Tiffany Field is dangerously touch deprived. This was in 2003. 2003. You know, rough and tumble play, man. They shut that down in schools, and I'm still irritated, terribly irritated. I mean, we try to suppress our children's natural tendencies to want to play with one another in these institutions that we put them in, and that's why I'm so hoping that I can get this business going and get enough income so that my wife can stay at home with the kids and actually foster a good social upbringing and not one that's just a utilization of the individual, which is what I feel like our school system has become. It's just basically there to foster a utilization from an individual. But this was 2003. I mean, I was just getting out of high school back then. I hadn't even joined the military at that time, so this was a while back. And now we've got kids wearing masks. I don't even know. I mean, I really don't know. I have not been into my son's school at all, ever. He got started in a new school. He's 7 years old. He's in second grade. Um, he got in last year, his first year in this school. And the minute that they opened up, they're like, yeah, we were not letting parents in. And I just wonder right now. I mean, I asked his teacher the other day. I sent him. I said, "Hey, do y'all have any kind of plan for rolling back mask mandates for kids?" Oh, we're following CDC guidelines. Okay, well, the CDC doesn't have a plan. So, in other words, you don't have a plan either. And it's just, when are we going to let children be children? When are we going to let them actually interact with one another and touch one another and learn to trust one another and that learn empathy for one another? Because they're not doing that right now. They're segregating them. It's horrible. I can't imagine. I mean, now I'm sure some of the teachers are pretty overwhelmed with just managing the children. They're probably overstepping the bounds of the CDC constantly in classrooms right now. And the teachers constantly have to get onto them for that. So that's just another burden on our teachers that they need right now, is to try to manage them from not getting sick. Hell, one of the reasons we got him into public school is so he could go and get sick. Because, seriously, you don't use an immune system, it dies. It withers and dies. It's just like a muscle, right? So you got to use it. You got to use it. It's okay. It's okay to get sick. It's not great to die from it. Right. I get it. I don't know what else to say. But anyway, I found this really great video here. I've been following it up. And I thought this was just fascinating here. Now, this was this was January of last year. This was right before the pandemic and epidemic came out in the United States, that this was given. And I want you to just watch this little section right here. Just watch this. Okay?
So she also mentioned natural killer cells. So natural killer cells are also known as NK cells or K cells. They're a type of white cell, and they have a major role in host rejection and in viral infections. So when you don't have enough natural killer cells, then you're more prone to having more infections. So when she and her group looked at women diagnosed with breast cancer. Oh, the natural killer cells are also involved in tumor necrosis. So that is killing tumor cells. And so this is the mechanism of action, that the massage itself created release of more of these killer cells, which created the release of more of the tumor killing cells, and